The government's initial decision not to negotiate with strikers and not to discuss pay was, of course, sloganizing and pointless. It now has to. Steve Barclay's £250 million package for the NHS, for reforms in the NHS, is a starting point. I don't think it's an end point, but it's a starting point. And a similar package needs to be brought forward for education. If we're going to avoid a long drawn out teacher strike. Both education and health are in serious need of reform, and a thoughtful government will have been already onto the case. This is not a thoughtful government at all. This is a government at the tail end, at the rump end of 12 years of obsession with Europe. And I don't think it can think very much beyond that obsession. And that's a shame. We've seen a number of completely lackluster and unfocused ministers in office. I've mentioned a few of them in the past. And I think the only focus that they've got is on negativity, on obsessing about a very small problem with immigration and obsessing about the way our country is structured, rather than making sure what we've already got works. We need to make our country work by tinkering around with constitutional change. We are not, in fact, making our country work. We're simply starting again. And we don't have the time or the luxury to keep starting again. Now, one of the problems with the NHS is the huge bureaucracy, the 42 different care boards, the different hospital groups and so on, and the fact that one doesn't talk to another. That needs to be sorted out. And if a little bit of money helps with that, that's great. Then we need to sort out the fact that people who are working for the NHS, working in the hospitals, need to be treated properly, with proper respect. And they need to be paid properly. We need to make sure they can do their job, which means parking. And that's just the start. There's so much more to do. Teaching is exactly the same thing. We need to trim down our bureaucracy and make sure the people who are actually doing the real work are valued and feel valued. Once that is done, then maybe we can start looking at restructuring the systems. But until we make it clear that we value the people who are doing the real work, which is not the bureaucracy, we cannot even begin to get started. Changing the bureaucracy is like changing the logo on a building. It is tinkering with presentation. We need to make sure the people who are doing the work can continue doing the work and want to do the work for us. We want them there. And we need to make sure that the government sends that message clearly.